Okay, guys, I'm live. I'm live, and I'm waiting for you guys. All right, welcome back. So I did not believe that my voice was not even audible during that first um session. Please let me know if you can actually hear me. Anybody who is here should let me know in the comment section. So we will only be able to communicate in the comment section, and that's because we may not be able to hear ourselves except you are a guest on this streaming platform that I'm using. So I can see that there are two viewers here. Please let me know if you can hear me. All right. You can hear me. Esther Audu, you can hear me. Gibbs Ezekiel, you can hear me. Miss Sue, you can hear me. I'm so sorry if I always get your name misspelled. Please forgive me. Right? Okay, so this is a training for us to understand how to better write content for our organization, FAB Treasure Foundation, right? So it's time that we start to see this organization as our own, right? See it as how you would see your own, see it as how you would see your own business, right? Because it is with that eyes that you'll be able to do better in whatever roles that you have been given. All right. Now we're going to be starting this training by looking at, we won't waste time, right? In the next 20 minutes, we should be out of here. And then hopefully you can also get to ask questions if you have any questions. Now we're going to be starting with what is content generally, right? So I believe that you've heard people say content is king and all of those terms they used to describe content. So it is not a cliche, right? It is actually true. The web, the internet is made up of content. So whoever is creating the content, whether it is video content or text-based content, if they don't create those contents, the internet as we know it will be empty. Whether they are creating blog posts or they are creating social media content or whatever kind of content on whatever platform, if they are not creating those contents, the internet will be almost empty. And I'm sure you can agree with me, right? Now, let us define content in general terms, or let us define content creation in general terms. Now, content creation is the process of generating, publishing, and distributing information or media, such as text, images, videos, and graphics, to educate, inform, entertain, or engage an audience. So if at any point you can't hear me anymore, please quickly drop it in the comment section so that I will know and be able to um, do something about it immediately, right? So what is content creation? I've just defined content creation as the process of generating and publishing and distributing content or information. But I would even like to say that content is the process of researching, right? Because research plays a very crucial role in creating content, especially for an organization. If it were content for your own personal business, maybe because you already have an understanding, or over the years you have come to understand what works for your business, you may not actually do research all the time, right? But content that works actually needs research, and I'm going to be talking about that as we go on in this training. Now, why is content creation important for us as an organization? So as FAB Treasure Foundation, why is creating content really important for us? Now, before I say anything, generally speaking, content serves to it serves to create a perception about your brand in the online space. Now, don't forget that the online space is made up of people, right? And people work with you based on the reputation, or based on your image, or based on the perception that they have of you. So if they don't have anything, if they don't have any if they don't hear you in any platform, or on any platform, they are not able to form any kind of perception about you, whether that is positive or negative, right? So that's all right. Thank you very much, Esther. Thank you. You let me know when you can't hear me anymore. For now, you can hear me. Thank you very much. All right. So, like I was saying, content actually helps to um, create a perception about you. You know, in the media, we talk about we say that the media helps to create agenda, right? So we call it the agenda setting role of the media. So if you read mass communication, or if you're reading mass communication, you might understand a thing or two about how the media helps to set agenda for, you know, public opinion. So it's also the same thing with content. If you don't put out content out there, remember that content is everything you know, you put out there about your brand. If you don't put it out there, people will not be able to know anything about you or be able to form any opinion about you. All right. Now let's bring it down to FAB. Why is content creation important to us as FAB Treasure Foundation? Now, number one is that it helps us in raising awareness about menstrual health, girl child empowerment, women's rights, and all the other aspects of our work, right? So by now, I believe that you already know the different things that we are about in FAB Treasure Foundation. You already know that we are all about menstrual health and hygiene. We talk a lot on girl child empowerment. We talk about girl child education. We talk about, you know, girl child access and, you know, helping the girl child access opportunities or information that is crucial to their development as, you know, members of society, right? Then another important reason why we create content is that it helps us to engage stakeholders, donors, partners, and the community, right? So now, remember that our audience, the people who are following us on social media, and maybe people who also come across our websites from time to time, also, you know, they are made up of a number of persons, right? They are made up of different kind of persons. We have people who are our stakeholders, right? People who have important stakes in the organization, right? We have we also have donors, we have partners, then we also have even our family members, right? Like family members of the organization, like our friends and our relatives who, you know, love what we do and they are following us. So it helps us, our content helps to engage each segment of our audience. All right. So it is very, very important that we create content that will engage them, engage these different segments of people. All right. Then another thing that our content helps to do is that it helps to influence policies and social change. So the kind of content you put out there, you know, helps to draw attention to societal issues with the aim of making changes, right? With the aim of influencing these policies, right? So that's why the kind of content we create sometimes revolve a lot on social issues, right? Not on social issues that are controversial in nature or that will drag us in the mud, of course, right? But the essence, the whole essence of the content we create is so that somebody can read it and be able to say, wow, I think that this XYZ issue is maybe this thing that is a societal issue. You know, this is what is right and this is what is wrong. So it helps us to influence policies and um you know, ensure that there is a change in society through our content. So somebody should be able to read your content and have a better understanding about societal issues, and then be able to take better decisions on what is right to do or what is not right to do. All right. Then another thing is our content helps to build credibility and trust. All right. So we are a reputable organization, and We are very careful about the things we do. So the content we put out there is going to determine if people would see us as such or not, right? If the kind of content we put out there, if we decide to follow all the trends that is happening, whether they are controversial, whether they are, and all of those things, it will actually inform people's perception of us. And that's why we are always very careful the kind of content we are actually putting out there. So these are some of the important things that we put into consideration, or these are the important reasons why we create content for the organization. Now let's look at the types of content that we create for the organization. Now, number one, we create educational content. For instance, we create content around menstrual health and hygiene tips, and we also create content around girl empowerment or girl child empowerment messages, right? So we talk a lot on menstrual health and hygiene. We talk about how young girls and how women in general can ensure that they are maintaining hygiene during their menstrual cycles. Then we also talk about um we give tips, and then sometimes we even talk about some myths and some beliefs that um in society about menstruation. And then we try to debug those information, and then we let people know that this is what is right and this is what is wrong, right? So that's educational content. Then we also have advocacy content, which is where we call for policy changes, awareness, and all of that. So for our content creators here, I believe that these things that I'm talking now is going to be guiding us in creating our content calendar for the coming month, right? So the month of April is for girls in tech, right? So we're talking everything about how technology can enable, women, not just girls actually, how technology can actually enable women to, become better in terms of their businesses, or even how technology or how girls can leverage technology to make their lives better, or how they can take advantage of technology to make their lives better, and also how they can, develop tech skills, to create opportunities for themselves. So I said I was going to send something earlier. I'm still going to try to send that, because it's going to also guide us in, creating our content calendar. But then aside from that, all of these things I've said should also be able to guide us in understanding how we write our content and the kind of content that we write. All right. So I've talked about the type of content we create. We create educational content, we create advocacy content, and then we also create testimonial stories. So we talk about impact from past projects. Those are testimonials, right? So we can just, let's say for instance that we did a project and we want to talk about the impact that we made. Say for instance that during the project we did a video content whereby we were able to talk to, a set of girls, and they talk to us about maybe how the things that they've heard, how everything we've heard has changed their mindset. That can actually be a testimonial based content, right? We can also get content from maybe people who have benefited from our project in the past. Maybe they just reached out to us and say, oh, I just want to thank you for, XYZ thing you said to me during one of your projects, or something you did for me. Those are testimonial based content. All right. Then we also have event coverage content types. So that's for when we go for, our events, or when we go for relevant events. We can just, of course, do video content during the event, and then we come back and we, edit that content and then we post it. Those are event coverages, right? So we create these content types in form of graphics, carousels, videos, infographics, and so on and so forth. So all of these different type of content can actually take different, formats. They can either be video content, they can be carousel based content. Now for carousels are more they are more um aligned for information based content. Now for instance, you want to say something like, you want to create a content around maybe 7 myths about menstrual hygiene. You can use a carousel. So a carousel actually helps you to, create information, or give several information about a particular topic. And then at the end of the day, you can now create one or the last slide that now wraps everything up, right? So carousels are, usually very engaging, because, like, for instance, on LinkedIn, one of the content that do, although we don't have a link, we have a LinkedIn account, but it's not active. But then I'm trying to let you know how effective carousels can actually be. For LinkedIn, people say that the content that have done well for them more than any other content are video content and carousel content. The reason why video content and carousel content do better is because they engage the audience on the spot, right? So, for instance, a carousel that talks about maybe 7 myths about menstrual or about menstruation, somebody would want to, once somebody sees that first title, they would want to scroll to read the next part. And once they see the next part that it is engaging, they want to scroll to read the next part, and they read until the end. Now, note that carousel based content don't even have to be only about maybe the one you create on a graphic. Carousel content can even be maybe a testimonial, several testimonials that you want to post. Say, for instance, that you are trying to give a, like, people have given you reviews, right? They have sent you reviews, and we want to post those reviews. This can also be applicable for your personal brands as well. So take this knowledge and apply in your personal brands, right? So let's say, for instance, that somebody has given you a review of your products or your service, and let's say, for instance, that it is a text-based review, and you have screenshotted that review and you want to post it. What you can actually do is the first slide of, you can turn it into a carousel content now, right? Then the first slide can be something, maybe a very engaging flyer that tells people, like, this is what people are saying about our brand, right? Then you can now use an arrow pointing to the next slide. Then the next slide can now, be different pictures of those testimonials, or those reviews that you have gotten, right? So I believe that by tomorrow we should be able to go into Canva to look more into how to create graphics, right? So I'm going to be showing you how better to create carousel graphics, right? Both for yourself and for the organization as well. So carousel content and video content helps people to stay on the content. It helps people to engage, right? So this is very, very important. Now let us look at our content structure. I'll soon be done. So I think I'm just going to be reading through so that we can wrap up, right? So at least by 8:30 we should be done. Now let us look at our content structure. Now, our brand tone, we have a particular brand tone in the organization. And when you guys joined, I did advise that you guys go to our social media pages and read how our content have been structured in time past, right? You're going to be seeing that there is a consistent tone that we use, and that tone is usually empathetic, empowering, and informative, right? So we try as much as possible to inform people. Whenever, if the post is about informing people, we try as much as possible to give people the information they need in very concise terms, right? So we try as much as possible to give people enough or sufficient information in a concise way, right? Then our content it also has an empathetic voice. So empathy means trying to feel the way others are feeling, right? So, and then there is also empowerment. So we try as much as possible to ensure that after reading our content you feel empowered in some way, right? You feel that, wow, these people actually have my interest in mind, and by doing this I am going to be maybe I'm going to be it's going to be in my own interest. So the content should make people feel empowered. All right, that's for brand tone and messaging. Then let us look at the key elements of an engaging content. Now, how do you ensure that your content is engaging? You have to ensure that there is clarity, there is relevance, and that it is action oriented. All right. So ensure that there is no ambiguity in your content. You want to ensure that when people read that content, of course, before you start writing, you already have a clear cut idea on the concept that you're writing about, on the information or the message that you're putting across. You should be able to put out the content in such a way that it is clear. People can actually understand, they can see through the content. That is what clarity is all about. And one of the ways you can ensure that you're putting out content that has clarity is by doing your research. So when you do your research on that particular concept, you already understand, the up and down and middle and everything and every aspect of that content, such that you're able to write it in such a way that even a 5-year-old can understand. All right. So let's say, for instance, you want to write on International Women's Day, for instance. One of the things I would do is I'll go to Google, and I'll do my research. I'll ask Google, what is International Day of Women? International What is the International Women's Day all about? When did it start? How did it begin? Where did it stop? Where are we now? What is the reason for doing it? And this is thank God for ChatGPT. Even though we don't encourage creating your content with ChatGPT, we encourage using ChatGPT to do research, right? By doing your research with maybe ChatGPT or any other search engine or tool, you'll be able to arm yourself with sufficient information to create your content with, right? So clarity is very important. Then relevance. Your content has to be relevant to our goals and objective, our overall goals and objective as an organization, right? So don't, when you're writing your content, maybe say for instance about the International Women's Day, you're not taking it out of context, like you're not writing about what does not concern us, right? So it should tie to what our goals and objective as an organization is, right? So that's why, for instance, one of the contents we wrote, we were talking about how I think there was a carousel content we're supposed to write for, and we're supposed to create for International Day of Women or International Women's Day. One of the slides we were talking about how it is important, how International Women's Day is important for us as an organization. We needed to put that in so that we can tie it back to being relevant to our organization, right? So that anybody who is reading that can actually can hear us from whatever it is that we are talking about, right? I hope you're understanding me. Then there is action orientation. At the end of your content, you should be able to call people to action. That's how you make it engaging, right? Maybe you want to tell them, maybe follow us for more details, or share this content to your network so that they can also learn more about it, or maybe visit our website. Those are calls to action. It should be action oriented. Sometimes it is not just about those surface level engagement. Sometimes we also talk about we also give call to actions that get people to take action, or that get people to make changes, right? So say for instance, we can say something like together we can, or I'm trying to put the word together now. After you talk about how important maybe creating a friendly environment for girls to thrive is, after you talk about that, you can say something like um talk to somebody about how they themselves can actually start immediately to ensure that they are creating a conducive environment for young girls to thrive in, right? And then you can ask something like, together we can make it happen. So that's where you have been able to call their attention to the fact that they have a role to play, right? So that is call to action. All right. So that is how to make your content action oriented. So content is not complete without call to action. This is very, very important, right? Then let us look at the literal structure of our content. Now we have a heading that introduces the topic under discussion, and that heading or the intro can use a story or a case study. Now, for instance, I think last year during the um 16 days of activism, where we no, I think that was in last year, that was last upper year, that was in 2023, where we're writing content every day for the 16 days of activism, because there is usually this, if you check the calendar that I sent, you see that December or November or thereabout is for 16 days of activism, where we talk about girl child or women empowerment, and how we can ensure that we everybody or women are have equal rights, or conversation around gender equality and all of those things, right? If you check some of those contents, we used a lot of stories, right? We referred to stories about women who have been disadvantaged or who are currently going through stuff and all of those things. So we try to infuse stories once in a while in our content. And why are stories important? Stories help people to engage, right? So if I'm reading, if I come across a content that starts with a story, I'll be pulled in to read all through the end because I want to know what happened, how did it happen. Do you understand? So stories are very, very important. So once in a while, you can think of a story that aligns with the concept that you're trying to create and use it. It can even be a fictitious story, right? But it shouldn't be like an outright lie. All right. So the body or the heading or the introduction of your content should have a story, right? It should have a storyline once in a while. All right. That's for the introduction. Then the body should give more weight to the topic under discussion, right? Then another thing about introduction is aside from stories, you can also use statistics. So you can start with something like, according to the WHO, XYZ number of women are current or XYZ number of girls are currently out of school, right? So that can also pull people's attention. They'll be like, wow, this statistics is amazing. Why is that so? You know, and people would want to read. So essentially, you should aim to make your content very engaging, right? Then the body of the content should give more weight or to the content by giving more information. It should provide more information. If you go to check our content, you would also see that there is always information. It is always informative, no matter how short the content is. There is always information. So to achieve that, you have to also do your research. Though we have a content researcher, right? He's not here in this training. He did said he's writing exams. So we have a content researcher whose work is to, of course, research on content types that aligns with content calendar for each month, and then he comes up with ideas, and then your responsibility as content creators is now to work on those content or develop it. But then he can't do everything for you. You have to be able to research that content so that you can have sufficient information to create your content, so that you would have this confidence. When we're putting out this content out there, we have this confidence that yes, this thing we are actually putting out is credible, right? Like there is no lie inside of this content, and this is very, very important. Now let's then there is also an ending that must have a call to action. This is very important. I've talked about this earlier. Now let's look at the do's and don'ts of our content. What are the things we should do in our content, and what are the things we shouldn't do? Please let somebody tell me if they can still hear me. I'm seeing that somebody is going off and on. I'd like to hear if we are following and if you can still hear me, and if you're also getting value, right? It seems I've been talking to myself all this while. Please let me know if you can hear me and if we are getting anything so far from this training, if it's making sense. All right, thank you, Meso. You can hear me. Who else can hear me, and who else is getting value from this training? I'll be waiting for your questions, of course. After this last part, you're going to be able to ask your questions, and then we would call it a night. All right. So since Meso can hear me, it means that every other person can hear me. Now let us look at the do's and don'ts. All right. Thank you very much. It's making loads of sense. Thank you so very much. Now let us look at the do's and don'ts of our content. Now the do's. The content must be factual and evidence-based. I'm not going to be talking much on this. This is why research is really important, right? Then you should use inclusive and respectful language. Excuse me. So using inclusive and respectful language simply means um, don't try to be biased, right? Don't try to let people see that you're trying to segregate anybody, right? We don't do controversial trends, right? We don't use controversial trends in our content. Like for instance, now during the time when Two-Face Idibia and his wife were trending for divorce and all of those things, we wouldn't can so sorry, please. We wouldn't have come to start creating content. There is no way we would have started creating content and start saying, Annie Dibia, she's a woman, and because of that, we are supporting her, and then we start creating content around that. No way. Because these things are controversial. A lot of people have different or differing interests around these things, especially the kind of people we have as our audience members. We have both male and female in our as our audience members, right? So we just can't come and start saying certain things because number one is going to offend people and they're not going to be seeing us as credible, right? Even though there are some times where we need to actually take a stand, right? We need to take a stand, especially when it has to do with something that is definitely right. We have to take a stand. No matter who is hurt or not, we have to take a stand, right? But then controversial issues like Nollywood, Nollywood issues, no, we don't do that, right? So um we have to ensure that we are very factual and evidence-based, and research is one of the things that ensures that, right? Then use inclusive and respectful language. I've talked about that. Then maintain consistency in branding and tone. And we've said that one of the things, or that we one of the brand tone that we always ensure in our content is um let me read that again. Let me go back to, okay, the our content are always empathetic, empowering, and informative, right? Then another do and don't is ensure high quality visuals and clear messaging. So this is for um visuals like graphics, what's it called, flyer, um infographics, what's it called, carousels, and all of those ones. So you have to ensure that those things are very, very eye catching, because trust me, for platforms like Instagram, those are the first things that people see before they even see your text, right? Because for instance, Instagram is it's an image based platform, so people actually see the flyer or the video before they even read your content. So when you're creating content for these platforms, you have to ensure that the graphics or the visuals are high quality. So tomorrow when we start when we're talking about Canva graphics, I'm going to be talking about that, showing us how to actually leverage Canva to create effective content. So that's why we ensured that we got the Canva Pro for Teams, so that all of us can actually have access, especially for content creators, because the Canva Pro actually gives you access to more features that you can use to create highly engaging or and high quality visuals. So tomorrow, after tomorrow's class, you're going to be required to give me your email addresses, especially for content creators, and then we give you the ground rules for usage, and then you can start creating your content. And so, this training is also going to be helping our content creators to also come up with their content calendar for April. So remember what I said in the group about content calendar. So this is very important. We need to ensure that we are putting our content in April back to back, right? So it's really not too much, just 3 contents in a week, right? One video content. The person who is creating video content, her work is even easier because it's just one content every week, right? So you want to ensure that you give us your best, right? Now, let us look at the don'ts of our content. What should we not do when we're creating content? Avoid misinformation or exaggerated claims, right? So, one of the things that will help us to do this is research, right? Research before you write. And then also, we would also get the content through reviews, proofread and review and all of that before we actually put it out there, so that we don't destroy our reputation and all. This is very, very important, right? Then do not use offensive or stigmatizing language. That one is clear, I guess. Then avoid posting without proofreading and fact checking. This is very important. So aside from our own fact checking, that we would do, you also as a content creator has to ensure that you fact check before we post the content. Because trust me, two eyes are actually better than one. So you can actually send the content to me and maybe some information are not correct, but I may not even have the time, or I may not be in the mental state, the right mental state to actually go through all of this. So we will trust and rely on you to be able to give us factual information. All right. Then do not use unauthorized images or sensitive personal stories without consent. So this is also very, very important. So when we go out there for our projects, there are some content that we may not be able to use, right? Because of the sensitivity of it, right? Maybe some, like for instance, say for instance, we go to an IDP camp, and then we took pictures or videos of people in not very good positions. We can't post it, right? So we have to ensure that we look at these things together before we actually go on to post. So this is also going to be beneficial for you in your personal businesses. If you want to avoid drama, if you want to avoid paparazzi, you just have to be very careful. Social media is very funny, right? You wouldn't even know what you post, and before you know it, it's going viral for the wrong reason, and then it's going to affect your brand positioning, right? So this is very, very important. So I think this is where I'm going to be drawing the curtain on this training for tonight, to take your questions, of course. So I'm glad that you find the class interesting and you find it valuable and that is making sense to you. So please, if you have any question around anything at all, even if it's around your roles that we taught. So unfortunately, Madam is supposed to be here, but for some unavoidable reasons, she's not here. But then you can drop your questions. I believe she'll be watching the replay and will be able to go through your questions and answer them. And unfortunately, again, I won't be able to hear you, so you'll be left to dropping those questions in the comment section. Then please do not drop questions in the comment section as regards your role, because this is actually a public video and we wouldn't want people to be in the know of what we are doing. So if you have those questions, it will be important you drop them in the group. Then the community manager, I don't know if it's Mesu that is community manager or the other person. That's Teresa, I guess. She has a community to manage and she hasn't even asked about the name of the community, right? So please, I don't know if she's here. She doesn't seem to be here. So if you have any questions around everything that we've discussed, please drop it in the comment section and I'll get on to answering those questions real quick. So I'm waiting for your questions, guys. Waiting for your questions. Okay. Mesa says she doesn't have a question. Who else has a question or doesn't have a question? All right, I'll be in your DM regarding my role. Thank you very much. I'll be waiting for you. So there are just about two persons here. I don't know the other person, but I think we'll just call this a day. Of course, you can always, ask questions on the group or even come into my DM, and I'll be willing and available to support and help with anything that there is. Right, so this is where we're going to be drawing the curtain on. Okay, so I am only confused on the carousel kind of content, but with the Canva class I should understand better. Yes, I am trusting God to help me explain how carousels work and how you can create better carousels. And one of the things I'm actually looking to do is to create a template inside of Canva. Since we are using a Canva team, I'm going to be creating a template that we're going to be using for our carousels and our other kind of content, so that anybody who is creating the content can just go there, copy and paste whatever content type you want to post, and so that we can also have a consistent voice as regards all our content, right? Then another tip I want to give for content creators when you're going to be coming up with your content calendar is Mondays are for Monday motivations, right? As always, right? Then maybe Wednesdays. Okay, I already said we're going to be creating videos on Wednesdays. Friday could just be for, okay, so Monday may also be for, aside from morning motivation, um we could also do quotes, right? Maybe a quote about um um healthy living, menstrual health, and all of those things, right? So you can just play around with being creative and come up with something that we can work with in April to ensure that we are doing well, right? All right. So thank you all very much for staying on to the end. I'm very, very happy that you turned up, and I believe that you've gained value and gained better insight into how to create better content for the organization, right? Thank you very much and see you tomorrow.